Okay, if you don't mind, Nate, I'll go ahead and go next with my part 2
By all
of
means.
the pale crawlers. We're talking last
Oh
week.
my
We were
God, I
talking about
forgot.
the pale crawlers, which is a kind of a cryptid, an entity, something or other that people are seeing. It is loosely affiliated with the night crawlers, the Fresno night crawlers, these things that kind of look like a pair of MC Hammer pants walking of their own volition through
You
the
can't
night.
touch them.
But
Yeah.
but I very well done.
Thank you.
But I am of the opinion that these things have been conflated needlessly, unless it was in some way like larval is not the word, but like, you know, some sort of partial manifestation that then grew into a more corporeal kind of form, because the thing that people are describing is not the friendly, dare I say it, sometimes sexy hammer pants that we're used to. It is a scary crawling beast. I can't remember what I called the segment last time, but let's call it today Have a Crawly Jolly Christmas. Even though it's not Christmas. Damn it.
Christmas in I was gonna say July, but it's not July.
Crawlsmas in July. Anyway, once again, we go to mysterioussorg to check out their excellent work on these creepy encounters with these weird pale humanoids. This is from Brent Swanser in October 2019. More bizarre encounters with creepy pale crawler humanoids. So I'm just going to read this pretty much tit for tat, but we'll bring our own hilarious flavor to it. But go over and check out Mysterious Universe. They're from Australia. They're doing incredible work. And those are, you know, good things.
They did promote the Plandemic lady, but that's fine.
Did they? She's insane.
Who didn't in the early days of the pandemic? She was charismatic.
They fully platformed that lady.
Bummer. Well, that's stupid of them. Anyway, they say one phenomenon that has picked up quite a few accounts and attention in recent years is one, I won't do that, is one that lies firmly out in the domain of the fringe and deals with thin, pale beings that seem to defy any real classification. They actually already said this. It's the same article. Let's make sure it's not exactly. No, it's not. Okay. The reports of unearthly pale humanoids creatures lurking about in the shadows cover a range of different descriptions, but one of the most common is that something very tall and extremely thin and gaunt with very pale, almost translucent skin. They often appear out of nowhere for reasons we cannot comprehend, can be seen to travel on 2 legs or 4, and one report that demonstrates an eerie sighting of these entities comes from Lon Strickler at Phantoms and Monsters. The witness says that this occurred back in 1994 at a place called Willow Creek, California, where he had been visiting his grandparents' house in the summer of that year. The house is described as a small 2-bedroom place in a rugged wilderness area with the Trinity River flowing practically right through their backyard, which is overlooked by a deck, blobberin' blobbity blah. Let's see. One evening, he went to sleep in a sleeping bag in the house's solarium outside under the stars, and the witness says he awoke in the middle of the night for no discernible reason. After wiping away the remnants of sleepiness, he realized he was awake, being overcome with a distinct feeling of dread that snaked through his veins and provoked within him a fight or flight response, shocking him awake like a splash of cold water. Despite the fact that it was a quiet evening, there was no threat to be seen, he says. After some time, most likely just a minute or two, I turned my head to the side to look into the yard. I had to turn to my side and lift myself a bit to get a better look, but the source of my feeling was impossible to miss. Standing at the bottom of the yard next to my neighbor's fence line stood a tall, skinny creature with skin the color of the moon. It had no hair on its head or anywhere else that I could see. Its eyes were shiny white with a reflective quality, but not bright like a bright light was shining on them right then. just moonlight. Its face had human features, but seemed squished flatter, and its arms seemed really long. Yep. Seemed really long. But that could just be because it was really tall. The chain link fence came up to its armpits, so that it had to be around 7 to 8 feet tall.
Jeez.
Not enough to just step over the fencing, but I didn't hear it climb over unless it had been in the yard before I woke up, and just didn't get to the dread feeling until after. Its body had a dirty brown, dark gray looking rags over its chest and around its hips, covering its crotch. Weird. Clothes.
Yeah, right?
It just sounds like they're describing Adam Driver on a bender.
Suck it, driver. It was looking right at me.
You've been radared.
I got scared and ducked down into my sleeping bag as far as I could. My sister has always been a heavy sleeper, and I didn't want to wake her up for this. Anyway, really? All right.
This is something.
It seems like a bad move. Not to
Paranormal Preparedness. Wake up your family member when you see this.
Wake up your sister. Wake up your sister. Wake up your sister. Next thing I hear, heavy steps on the deck coming towards the solarium. There's a wood door with a screened window in the top of it, not open at the time as far as I can remember. All was quiet for a while, so I peeked out through from a small fold in the sleeping bag. Through one of the bottom windows of the solarium next to the door, I saw its pale, large feet. The skin was rough and the toes were gnarled with dirty nails. I curled up, trying not to make a sound or move much. The bag was getting stuffy. Okay. He says the next thing he knew, he was being shaken awake by his father having passed out, and he would later found out that no one else had seen or heard anything unusual. There were no footprints, no physical evidence left behind, and his father told him that it had probably been a bad dream. Pretty wild.
Yeah, that's a creepy,
pretty bad dream.
Weird one.
Yeah, pretty bad dream. A somewhat similar report comes to us from Reddit user Buckeye Brute.
Yeah, read it in that voice.
Buckeye Brute, who relates an experience his grandfather had at his rural home in a coal mining town in southeastern Ohio. The grandfather began to get visitations at night from a very otherworldly, tall, pale being that seemed to just loiter about the property and watch the house. And the commenter says of his grandfather and his brush with the weird. He used to be soft-spoken and generally reserved, but the last time I visited him, he was easily startled by noises, constantly checking outside the window. And he won't let his dog outside unless he goes with the dog, and he's always bringing his handgun with him. I asked him why.
What year is this from?
This is
last year.
2019.
Right, but
okay, 2 years ago.
Yeah. Is this this just sounds like PTSD from Vietnam.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Don't rule it out.
Or
real.
Iraq, possibly.
Yeah. He blah, 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 bringing his handgun with him. I asked him why he was so jumpy, and he told me it was because of something he has seen multiple times outside his kitchen window.
Yeah, the enemy.
He claims that he has seen a tall, white, very thin creature on the edge of his backyard near the tree line. He tells me it has small black eyes, that it's around 8 feet tall, and that it just stands there watching his house and then vanishes. He said the sightings.
Oh, no.
It's very scary. Now that I'm kind of trying to get, now that I'm starting to get a picture of, what their faces look like, it's scary.
Yeah.
Kind of small,
doll's eyes,
petulant faces.
A pale crawler's eyes is like a doll's eyes.
He said the sightings started about 2 months ago, and I've only seen him twice since. He started to see whatever this thing is. I'm at a loss for words on how to help him. My grandfather used to be so easygoing, but anymore he's afraid of my family staying in his house past sundown because he doesn't want any of us seeing it either.
Okay, what your father has is sundowning.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is a guy that he ghosted on Grindr. He's just looking for a hookup that his family doesn't know about because he's ashamed. And it's a very sad story.
Could be. Just let him in. Accept
Werewolf Radar, you heard the gay theory first here again.
Mm-hmm. A quite bizarre report is also given by a Reddit user called Onion Starseed on a thread of humanoid encounters. I follow the humanoid encounters subreddit. It's great. who says that he and his friend saw a pale white creature they refer to as an inorganic being in the wilds of British Columbia, Canada in 2010. On this evening, the two of them were out exploring the area along with the friend's dog, and they came to a steep cliff overlooking the forest area. And that is when the witness noticed a very peculiar entity down in the trees. He says of what happened. There's a steep cliff made out of the forest floor when you first walk in. It's only about 10 to 15 feet into the forest area from the entrance of the forest. When we were standing at the top of the cliff/ravine before the pathway leading down to the rest of the forest and the creek at the bottom, which was the only safe, what's the deal with people? Which is the only safe way to walk down.
He was writing in a moment of passion to where the memory of this creature was striking him with goosebumps and fear still, you know?
I could see a 7 to 8.
This is what editors are for.
Pure white, soft-looking figure. And it was in between the trees, moving around softly, swaying left to right, back and forth, slowly standing, literally touching the forest floor. In the same exact place the whole time we saw it, making absolutely no sound, and there was absolutely no wind. It was 7 to 8 feet tall, pure white. When I mean pure white, I mean paper, bone white, not see-through, just two pure white, long limbs from what we could see in the dark. It was so white, it looked like it was almost giving off light. But it wasn't, because it was not shining or illuminating the trees or ground. And I'm pretty sure you could see the shadow on it from moving it back and forth in the same, from it moving back and forth in the same place between the trees. Had no facial features from what we could see and was swaying back and forth around that I can only describe as 7 to 8 foot separated curtains blowing in the wind, touching the forest floor. That's so strange. See, this is where they're describing more of a Fresno crawler.
Yeah, a fabric crawler versus a bone crawler.
Yeah. But right and left, back and forth in a specific motion with no sound at all, absolutely no wind, dead silent, emanated the feeling of dread and impending doom when I started being mesmerized by its strange movements. Weird. I tried my best to squint my eyes and adjust them to the inorganic being /dark to see what it was doing or if I could make out what it looked like better, but it did not help at all. It just still appeared as I described. I wasn't even going to say anything about the figure to my friend at first because I was waiting for my friend to say something. We observed it for a couple of seconds in complete silence and were mesmerized by its movements, quote unquote. Then I asked my friend if he saw it, and he said, yeah, he could as well. We stood silent in fear as we were watching it do its strange, unsettling, soft swaying movements / trying to adjust our eyes to the inorganic being and see what it was doing. As I was in a slight daze watching it sway, I started to feel an ominous energy, quote unquote, set in and felt impending doom, the sinking feeling in my chest, like when you're going to die. Yeah. Or are in a life-threatening situation, and I had shivers going through my body. That's when I told my friend specifically, I don't like this. He agreed, and we left immediately. There was absolutely no sounds in the forest. It was dead silent while it was moving back and forth. Its movements could have been a lure of some sort because it did not move towards us or anywhere. It was just letting us know to stay away because it was scared to death as well, or just didn't want us to disturb it. It was literally something you would see in a science fiction horror movie.
I mean, have we ever heard any stories about a crawler attacking somebody or being aggressive?
Well, I don't know. Let's perhaps
in
read
terms
on.
of like the rake though, because like there's been some rake, not reporting, but like videos, I guess, from Czechoslovakian people who have been known to hoax things, and they're horrific.
Extremely aggressive.
Yeah. I've never seen the rake not come at the recorder with sheer rage.
The description also, there was a Strange Familiars a couple of weeks back where somebody talked about having with their father out in the woods seen what appeared to be like a long towel, like a horizontal towel moving throughout the it was pretty much all the same description, except it was
So
on
weird.
its side.
I
See,
think
it
I'd
seems
put
like-
that with the Nightcrawler.
I guess so. It
Type.
seems like we're talking about two different things to me. This article says in this particular case, the witness claims the case that we just discussed of the kids seeing the 7 foot tall, 2-limbed creature. Claims that he asked around to people from First Nations and that they told him it was a creature they called the Sisiuto and other regional names, and that it was a sort of spirit that they didn't like to talk about with outsiders. It is interesting to note that many of these cases make mention of a potent sense of fear that washes over the witnesses, as if being generated from outside and beamed into them. A case that really exemplifies this is one given by Reddit user on a post titled "White quote-unquote creature in the woods of PA." The witness says he was driving his aunt to the airport at around 1 a.m. in a rural area outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And the road is described as having been very dark and a little foggy. Perfect. Oh, it's perfect. Then they came across something they could not explain. It was facing toward a telephone pole off to the right of the car. The pole was just in front of the garage or small barn structure. All I could see was the back of its head, completely white, no hair, and its hands and its forearms, which were also totally white. It looked like it was wearing a dark shirt or something of that nature, but it was facing away from us, leaning into the telephone pole with its arms up against the pole and its head on its arms, or at least a stance similar to that. The worst feeling I have ever felt rose up in my chest when I saw it. I felt my heart almost stop and drop into my stomach. I felt sick and terrified. All I knew was that whatever it was, I didn't want it to turn around. No matter what, I knew it couldn't be allowed to turn around or I would regret it. I've seen a lot of really weird things in my life and felt a lot of really weird sensations. I've always been super sensitive to the energy in homes, and I've straight up seen ghosts in my parents' home, one of which I am very wary of. The other I am comforted by, but that's a different story for a different time. But this was actually terrifying. I cannot explain the immense feeling of dread and horror I experienced in that moment. You could only understand if you'd experienced yourself. The thing was tall and had distinct arms and legs. It had no hair whatsoever on its body. I don't know if it had facial features because it was faced towards the pole, almost like it was counting for hide and go seek with its arms up.
Fucking terrifying.
Ghosts have learned games from us, and they're fun too.
It might have been hugging on to the
Initially,
pole.
I thought that it sounded like it was, just a very tall guy on a Nostromo brand smoke break, but
Sure. The only
If it's
stroke,
counted to find you.
the only smoke break where purge rules apply. It wore something black, and I experienced the worst and most deeply jolting fear in its presence, and I was only near it for a few seconds. Interesting. So that's what I'm talking about. So some of them seem to be these pants creatures that are all white, and some of them seem to be these pale, gangly humanoids who are wearing like some kind of rudimentary clothing.
Yeah, that's different creatures.
It's different creatures.
Are the other creatures trying to imitate the pants creatures?
I don't know. I don't
Like they
know.
saw them in linen one time and it looked really cool on a beach, and now
This says a great many of these encounters would take place along lonely roads at night. Reddit user Distinct Earthling gives such an account that supposedly happened on Christmas night, 2007, along a darkened rural back road in upstate New York. At one point, he had made his way to a very secluded dark patch of road that had, quote unquote, barren fields on either side and wood set back. He claims that he came across something very odd walking along the opposite side of the road coming in his direction. He says that on sight that bloomed up out of the night. He says of the sight that bloomed up out of the night. All right, well.
Beautiful word.
He's a Shakespeare. It was not a person. It stood on two long legs with long arms hanging down from its shoulders. It was strong looking, lean, muscular, but not beefy in stature. It looked thin at the same time. It stood at least 7 foot tall. It was light colored, not sure whether it was white, tan, yellow, or grayish. Hang on. I'm so sleepy. Okay.
Well, that's because this dark energy is siphoning your life force from reading the stories, getting you.
It didn't appear to have
Yeah,
fur.
we have to stop smoking dark energy before we do this.
It didn't appear to have fur, but there was some texture to the skin. It wasn't smooth. There appeared to be something coming down off its back. They wear cloaks. It's so strange. I don't know what this was. All I can recall about it was its face is the small features it had, but the mouth and jaw were notably large, and it had pointed things atop its head. Two things going straight upward and something mingled between the two things. What? That's what I got from my quick scan and from my observation of it as it neared my car and my car neared it. As my car became parallel with it within a split second, I went from looking out my windshield to looking at it from my driver's side window. In that moment, its face quickly peered down at me, and all I remember was the mouth open wide. Yikes.
Yeah, that's what I would remember.
Terrifying.
Out came a remarkable scream that I'll never forget. Gives me the chills just thinking about it. It consisted of a high-pitched, shrill shriek, enveloped in a deep, guttural growl. Both sounds happened simultaneously in that scream. I kept driving all the while. This was all happening so fast that I didn't even have a chance to be scared or shocked or anything. Later on, I was in total shock after it sunk in. Had my driver's side window been open fully, it would have touched me or worse, taken me. I'm certain of it. To this day, I still haven't worked out what this was. Scary.
Do you imagine being taken by this thing? Like, where'd you go? What beautiful adventures you'd go on?
Imagine. It wants your legs. It wants your limbs.
No, I think it wants to take you to a mystical land. It's a Puff the Magic Dragon.
The comedy that works out in my head is just that it takes you, then it goes 50 yards, and it's I don't really have any.
All right, this is your stop.
I never thought I'd get this far.
In another report, we have Reddit user cspin360, dope username, who also saw something very unsettling by the side of a road while driving with his fiance through a remote road in an undisclosed location within one of the Rust Belt states. He says, of the freakish encounter, I live in a Rust Belt state, about an hour south of our state capital in a rural, hilly area. Me and my fiance were driving from my parents' house, to a friend's for a bit of night swimming. Our way there, is that a thing? Our way
swimming
there,
at night? No one's ever done that before.
Our way there passes a state park's boundaries, about 5 miles from any house on the road. We seen what looked to be a pale-skinned humanoid creature on the side of the road. From behind, you could see the spine of this creature poking out of its back, and it almost looked as if it was hunched over roadkill. I could see it turn its head in our direction as we passed, but I didn't get a good look at its face. Before seeing that, me and my fiance were very skeptical of the paranormal.
That
do you guys
sounds
know
like a chupacabra.
Do you guys know?
Sounds like a chupacabra.
Do you guys know the theory that the state parks were lined to protect or because of treaties with certain humanoid species?
Whoa.
You mean Native Americans?
Yeah. But there's then another side to that where it's this region's here because of an ant person, which is a Native American legend, and
ant person.
There's some crazy conspiracies that straight up are this national park's only here because there's a mythical humanoid creature here the government's trying to protect.
From the state of Illinois, we have a report from Ranker with a witness who was driving on his way home from a friend's house in rural Illinois, night swimming most likely, in an area with many creeks and woods when he had his encounter. His girlfriend was with him at the time, going home herself in a separate car, but later she would call him in a state of frantic panic and would give a very strange tale. The bizarre story goes as follows.
Hit it.
On Friday night, she and I were at a friend's house and decided to leave around 1 a.m. It's very foggy outside, being that we live near rivers and creeks in rural Illinois. She goes to the gas station on her way back to her way home to the rural town, where we both live about a block away from each other. I get home and don't hear from her for a bit until she calls me very shaken up and crying. She says on her drive home she saw something crouched in the road on the right side. It looked to be fairly small, possibly a child. She rolled her window down and asked if they were okay and got no answer, only continued sobbing. Ugh.
That's hard.
She pulled over and gets out of the car, walked up to whatever this was, and attempted to ask if it needed any help. The thing stands up on 2 feet at over 6 feet, pale and hairless, and lets out a god-awful screech and runs off into the road into some pretty dense woods near a tributary of the Kaskaskia River. She can't say if it was a boy or a girl, but she can say she's never heard anything like that before. She's pretty jarred by the experience.
Oh, hell yeah. That's frightening. Number one, I, first of all, would be prepared for it to attack me, and then it runs the opposite direction. That's like worse, almost emotionally, to where like, oh, I was prepared for something, and now my mind's shattered once again.
Yeah. Crazy. Sounds like they scream at people a lot.
It seems like, are they surprised they're being caught to where it frightens them, or is this like their method of extrication to where like maybe this is how they get you to freeze and then they flee?
Or maybe they're feeding on the fright. Who knows? Yikes!
And he's like, oh, that was delicious. Good fright.
Says, as frightening as these reports might be, perhaps even scarier still are those reports of pale humanoids or pale crawlers right within the confines of one's home. And there are a few very disturbing cases along these lines. Yikes. One is given on the site Ranker by a witness who was at the time staying with her parents at their home in Texas. She says that one day she was just taking a nap on a futon in the middle of the day, and that at one point she opened her eyes to see that she wasn't alone there. She says, as I opened my eyes, I saw for only a second the image of some white humanoid creature kneeling on its hunches looking at me. It couldn't have been all that tall since its eyes were only inches above my bed. I could see the top of its knees, which was resting its head against. Yikes. While I can't remember many details about its face, I knew somehow that it wasn't entirely right, for lack of a better term. I can't remember if it even had any hair on its head or the color of its eyes, but I can remember that its skin was very pale, and it looked as if it was just skin and bones. I don't know why the image of this creature was so vivid, even though I only saw it for a second, but even to this day, it stands out. Very scary. Got one more story.
Hit it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
This is from another Reddit user who saw something incredibly odd in his home when he was 14 years old. At the time, it was around 10 p.m. at night, and the witness had gone to sleep on the sofa in the living room. As he lay down to try and sleep, he then heard a scrabbling, scratching sound that kept him awake, and which was odd because the family did not own any pets and everyone else was in their rooms. The witness describes a spooky ordeal that would follow thusly. So I'm lying down. As soon as I close my eyes, it's like I blinked. I hear something crawling on the shaggy carpet, like it was crawling fast in circles. I could hear it loud and clear. I stay frozen thinking, what the fuck? The crawling sounded as if it was scraping itself against the carpet while moving. I hear it coming closer to me, next to the couch, and it goes back off to the same spot where the sound started, which was like 5 feet away from the couch, in this empty space in the corner of the living room. Curious, I take a small peek, and as I can remember, it looked like a human crawling on all fours, except the body was backwards, like if you lie down facing up and then arch your body with your hands and legs. Yikes.
Like your exorcist
I hate it.
crawl.
I hate it so much.
And it was dark, pale skin, and I didn't see a head, only its legs and hands. It wasn't wearing anything. It was dark from my view. I didn't see its entire body. At that time, I'd never played any scary games, and now that I'm older, I can say the creature looked like something out of a Silent Hill game. Yikes. Like the skin texture. I know I wasn't asleep because I barely got on the couch, and when I jumped, I was still wide awake. I wasn't sleepy at all. I know it wasn't a dream.
I don't like it none.
Pretty darn spooky. That's
horrifying.
that does it for another installment of Have a Crawly Jolly Christmas. I believe it or not, there are more encounters, guys. In the past couple of days, July 25th, Mysterious Universe posted another bizarre and spooky cases of pale crawler humanoids in residential areas, and we'll hit that up next episode.
Well, fucking A, man. I mean, this is the thing that this is what we're here to do. Preparedness.
Absolutely.
Specifically maybe for these things.
They seem to be coming. They seem to be coming. Watch out.
Keep your fear clenched in your pockets. Don't let too much slip out when they scream at you. I guess for preparedness, play Silent Hill. Get desensitized to this creature.
Get yourself a flashlight attached to a gun.
Yes.
Keep the radio on.